Hello and welcome to Media Musings. Currently in the chat, we have Doc Fearsome, Critical Cripple, Surfum, Dirty Rodent, Jennifer. Hello to everyone and anyone who may be watching in the future. Today, we're having a slight change of plans at the last minute because my wonderful co-host is currently ill. So we don't exactly have a topic right now because she was going to run a Star Wars themed D&D game.
Yeah.
Oh, and hello, Amiga Nuts.
So I guess maybe I don't know what we're going to do as a topic. We might have to throw this out to the chat or something.
Yeah.
Depending on what suggestions we get, of course.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, this is supposed to be a media type show, so you know.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe we could go off the last critical question and talk about time travel.
Yeah. Okay, well,
yeah.
Why don't we do time travel films or something? I don't know.
Well, yeah, like time travel in media.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's as good of a topic as we'll probably get. Now, obviously,
yeah.
Considering we haven't really prepared anything for this.
Yeah.
No, Jennifer, we're not having that debate here. No.
Yeah.
So I don't know where we're going to begin with this, really. So if we're going to, probably sometime in the future, we'll hopefully, if time travel ever becomes a thing, we'll come back and have a plan for the stream.
Yeah.
So that would be the ideal thing. But
yeah. Hello.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi. Hey, I know you.
Yeah. So now, what exactly counts in your mind as a time travel story? Because
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose anything which involves someone from like probably a present or maybe even from another period, basically from someone who's in one time period who ends up in another completely different time period, whether that be the past or future.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's like a future person in the future traveling into the past, someone in the past traveling into the future, or someone in the present going either way.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of examples. I mean, there's probably hundreds and hundreds of examples of this.
Yeah.
I've always wondered, what would it be like if I was, say, 7 to 10 minutes ahead of the entire planet? That I experience everything 7 to 10 minutes before everyone else does. That would be weird. Oh, we're frozen.
Yeah.
No,
I can hear you. So, under that, definition, technically, the first time travel story, at least off the top of my head, wouldn't be the Time Machine by H.G. Wells. It'd be Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court.
Oh. I only saw that in a movie once. years ago. I've never read the play.
Oh, it's not a play. It's a novel by Mark Twain, and there are actually quite a few. There are quite a few Connecticut Yankee based, stories that have been made into movies. It seems to be like what kind of happens is like when people don't know what to make a movie out of, they just adapt Connecticut Yankee again and put another twist on it.
Yeah, time travel is a popular.
Yeah.
H.G. Wells.
Yeah.
That one,
Yeah.
Again, I didn't read the book. I saw the movie. The one made back in the 60s. It scared the fuck out of me. Those Morlocks were just frightening beyond belief.
So the tragedy of cats and also the tragedy of new messages popping up as I'm clicking. So has anyone seen or heard of Outlander?
I don't think I've ever watched that, you know.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it.
Maybe someone can enlighten us a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I may have done. I don't know, but off the top of my head, this TV series, isn't it? I definitely don't think I've seen it. So,
So
do it.
I'm gonna go on a bit of a tangent here. Well, technically, not exactly a time travel story under our specifications. It's probably one of my favorite multi-period type stories. Is Times I, which is the first book of the Time Odyssey trilogy, which was a collaboration between Arthur C. Clarke and Stephen Baxter. Yeah, it basically takes place in kind of a parallel series to Space Odyssey, in that same kind of basic premise, except instead of the the aliens in Space Odyssey being semi-benevolent and helping mankind advance, they're out to freaking kill us. But what happens is basically they use their super advanced space science and make a pocket dimension where they take chunks of Earth from different periods of its history and like kind of put it together into kind of like a museum Earth. So the main the book follows a group of cosmonauts that were orbiting over a section of Afghanistan when that section got yoinked, and a group of British, like a British platoon in Afghanistan, that were in this same chunk, and the British get connect up with a British force from the the age when Britain actually had India and Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And Rudyard Kipling's there, and that that group links up with Alexander the Great's army. The cosmonauts end up linking up with the Golden Horde of Genghis Khan. And the absolute bonkersly awesome climax of the book is Alexander the Great's army against the Mongol horde to try and control Babylon, which has like this artifact in it that could potentially bring the modern people home.
I would think a good plot would be Vlad the Impaler meets Taylor Swift.
And I'd say you're not a fan of Taylor Swift then. I think we covered that in the last stream, though.
That is interesting. A World War II nurse who falls through time to 1700 Scotland.
Oh. That 400-year thing again, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that actually, ironically, I think that's kind of where why we went on this topic, really, because of the last question on Dave Street about.
Yeah.
I suppose in a way it related to time travel, going back in time or something. So. As we can probably tell, there's nothing really planned out for this whatsoever. But I mean, I guess when it comes to me, people like into these probably great books and great stories about it. I love the really simple films about it or whatever that you just don't really have to engage your brain about, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I just like don't have to zone out on the bloody science of that or anything. It's just like just sit back and enjoy it. I know it's not supposed to make sense, but
Yeah,
that
Hissy, we're talking about time travel because we had a last minute change of topic, and that's what we came up with.
Yeah. Any sort of films or books or anything that involve time travel that you want to talk about?
Well, if you're talking about time travel, isn't it also time and space then?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I can kind of give the Time Machine a pass for this because it was written before we knew about relativity and such, and how the galaxy itself is moving. But the whole point of the Time Machine, and it's actually pointed out in the book, is that it moves through time and not space, because at one point it gets dragged off by the Morlocks, and the time traveler who gets it back and gets back home, and when he's back home, it's like on the other side of his lab.
No, it was outside. He had to open the patio doors and drag it back in.
Yeah. So. So my point is, if while it's traveling through time, it's fixed in space. Technically, after thousands and thousands, when he goes thousands and millions of years into the future, he should be just technically sitting in the vacuum of space. So,
well, that
yeah.
I mean, you could make you could make the argument that it's still connected to the gravity well of the Earth, and that's why it stays placed on Earth, but it moves with the Earth.
Well, it's like the Earth's atmosphere. The Earth's atmosphere moves with the Earth. Why couldn't the space of time have a similar relationship to itself? We don't know, really, do we?
Yeah. And reasons. That's why.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. That's
mean-
the best one.
I suppose really with these kind of stories involving time travels, well, I think they generally do tend to quite often go into several sort of I don't know. There's several sort of things that can be quite consistent with them. It's things like whether it be in that kind of changing the past or alternative sort of futures or history or timelines, dimensions, or whatever it may be. And I suppose sometimes there's what they sometimes call the butterfly effect that is sometimes done in these stories as well.
Actually, where the okay, so the butterfly effect comes from two things. One, the chaos theory thing, where the flap of a butterfly's wings could cause a storm on the other side of the earth, and the actual explanation for that is like if you make a perfect weather predictor, but you fail to account for the flap of a single butterfly's wings way in the future, it'll be way off its predictions. That's basically what that whole chaos theory phrase is about. But it also comes from it, especially in terms of time travel, the Ray Bradbury story, A Sound of Thunder.
Sound of Thunder, yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Where he goes back in time to, hunt a dinosaur, and everything is laid out. There's like this floating path that you got to stay on so you don't disturb the environment. And they go and find a dinosaur that was about to die anyways, and shoot it the moment before it's destined to die. So, so they try and make sure not to change anything. And the protagonist steps off the path and squishes like the original butterfly or the ancestor of like all the butterflies that we'd have. And when he goes to the future, it's a a fascist totalitarian nightmare because like humanity didn't have that example of beauty. And
that's sort of a thing that's even in some sort of like real popcorny kind of things like Back to the Future, that's the sort of trope that comes up quite a bit, is the whole being careful not to mess with future events kind of things, even though ironically that's kind of what they do throughout the whole of that trilogy.
But isn't that fucking with the space-time paradox?
And Good Morning,
really
Ilya.
The antagonist? Isn't that really the antagonist in every time story you've ever seen?
So, though, bringing up, how everybody, the trope of you got to be careful not to change the past, reminds me of something I thought about a while ago, where the time travel story is essentially the opposite of the prophecy story. Because in the prophecy story, the prophecy comes true no matter what. But in a lot of time travel stories, you got to be careful not to change anything, or basically it the prophecy story by its very nature diminishes humanity's ability to change anything, the individual's ability to actually destiny is set. But, when it comes to time travel stories, destiny is infinitely mutable, and humans have all the power to make all the changes.
Yeah. I mean, I was wondering, because when it comes to prophecy or precognition things, does that really count under the definition we've... because, I mean, there's great examples of that in literature, going right back to, like, Homer's Iliad, whereas people obviously think of, I think, was it Cassandra who had the gift of prophecy, but was also cursed that no matter how many, even though she got it right every single time, no one would ever believe her.
Yeah, or... all the stories about when they go to the Oracle makes this prophecy, and they do everything they can to avoid it coming true, and then it comes true.
Yeah.
Because they did everything they could to avoid it coming true.
Or they've interpreted it wrong, or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, like the story of someone who got an oracle as to whether he should, like, this city should go to war with the other city or whatever, and the oracle sort of said, if you go to war, a kingdom will fall, and he interpreted that as being the other kingdom and not his own.
Yeah.
He's probably, if you're going to talk like Greek stuff on that.
Yeah, true. The only reason I brought it up was a counterpoint / point of comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Oracle is never wrong. Don't try to figure the Oracle.
Yeah. It's
And hello, Christ Puncher. We're getting quite a few people in.
Yeah. It's cool. But yeah, again, it's another thing, like, even like the sort of prophecies or precognition of the future is another trope that goes back from, like, what I said, from ancient Greece right up to modern films. Like, you think things like, what's that film with Bruce Willis in? Where it was, forget, it'll come back to me in a minute, but it was dealt on that, or even those, I mean, they're awful movies, but that, like, Final Destination movies were based on sort of thing. It's not really time travel necessarily, but it's having an accurate premonition of something that's about to happen.
Yeah, and like, I haven't seen the Final Destination movies, but isn't the whole point of the Final Destination movies is, like, you avoided your fated death, so now death is out to kill you.
Yeah,
to balance the scales.
It's like you can only cheat fate for so long, sort of thing.
Yeah,
that one, eventually it's going to catch up with you. But yeah, they're not good movies. I'll be totally honest.
There's a side chat going on in the chat where people started talking about the Doctor's I think it was the Fourth Doctor's scarf. And now everybody's talking about crocheting and knitting and yarn.
Yeah. So I can't believe we're talking time travel. We're 25 minutes in, and we haven't even talked Doctor Who yet. And it's we know for a fact that if Jen was well and been able to do this stream, that would have been like there within like 2 minutes.
Yeah, and
I'll just see what Jenny's doing.
Yeah.
Okay, I got my scarf.
Yeah, and technically. Doctor Who is going to be its own topic, but we can, we can touch on it here. We're like, I'm holding Doctor Who off to the side until we can get a hold of Shannon Q, because Jen says Shannon would be really interested in talking it.
That could be like the Star Wars thing. That could be several streams on something like that.
Oh yeah.
Is there anybody online streaming Doctor Who? We don't get it in this area.
If it is, I'm not, we're not going to try and watch it, because I don't want to get copyright punched by the BBC.
No.
No,
I'm talking about myself.
I think Jenny's means like anything like Netflix or anyone like that. I think what she means.
Netflix had New Who for a while, but then they dropped it, and that's why I'm actually behind on New Who.
I'll just look around.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoy it, but I'm not a massive, like, real massive Doctor Who, like, geek in that respect.
Yeah.
I definitely something I've checked out on in recent years. I've got to be honest, but
yeah.
As I think you're probably aware of when it comes to when I've talked about Star Wars and things, that a lot of like real deep lore on stuff is not something that's necessarily always going to interest me. Even with things I really like.
Yeah.
So.
But though Doctor Who has like a really good kind of approach to the whole changing time kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't matter except for like the really big moments. Because there are like the fixed points in time where if you can pretty much mess around with other stuff and it won't really matter that much.
Yeah.
But bad things happen if you try and change a fixed point in time. Though which kind of actually.
Well, I think I was going to say, I think if you actually look back at the real history of Doctor Who, especially like the classic era, I think it even I think it almost started off as a sort of semi-educational kind of program to teach a bit more, like history in a sense, or they'd have to time traveling through periods of history.
Yeah. Basically, Doctor Who was originally conceived as like an edutainment kind of show.
Yeah.
Where in the episodes that take place in the future, they'd be teaching kids about science. And then in the episodes that take place in, the past, it'd be history.
Yeah.
Oh, like Bill and Ted. No.
Bill, I just say, you got to just look at Bill and Ted there. How much of it was Doctor Who inspired there or ripped off?
Yeah.
I mean, they even got a phone booth China.
Well, I mean, heck, Back to the Future. One of the ideas of for Back to the Future that got scrapped because it was obviously a bad idea. Kind of was a ripoff of Doctor Who. Because originally it was like the time machine was going to be like a laser, but that was too expensive. So the second idea was it was going to be a time traveling fridge. And then they're like, wait, if we do this, dumb kids are going to get themselves locked in fridges and possibly die. Let's not do this. And then that's when we got the DeLorean.
The irony is, I think that film had come out like 2 years earlier. It probably would have saved the DeLorean Motor Company, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, probably. And actually, originally, I forget if like they wanted to use the Ford Mustang, and Ford wouldn't let them, or Ford wanted them to use the Ford Mustang, and they're like, no, we're not taking your money.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I do and kind of enjoy those sort of more, they're more popcorny, like entertainment don't have to really think too deeply about the plot in any of them.
Yeah.
As I said, the irony of Back to the Future, as I said earlier, though, is that Doc Brown's always warning Marty about like screwing up future events, and then they're trying to like make you do all this stuff to make sure stuff doesn't get messed up in the future. Yet literally all they actually seem to do is mess with what's already going to happen, and they altering the future or altering the past seems to be literally all they do.
But what do you expect for a guy who can't even pronounce the word gigawatts?
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, so you'll probably like this one that I'm going to bring up because it is, you know, it's not much of a thinker time travel, you know, movie. It's very much a popcorn one. Time After Time.
All right, I'm not sure I've seen that actually, but
so
add that to my list.
So Jack the Ripper, you know, steals H.G. Wells's time machine to make his escape. So H.G. Wells has to chase after him, and so it's H.G. Wells and Jack the Ripper in like it was like modern day for when it was made, and it was like made in the late 70s, early 80s. So late 70s, early 80s, San Francisco.
Oh, I've just googled it. Is this got Malcolm McDowell in it? Is that the one?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, this sounds like an interesting film. How have I not heard of this?
Yeah,
just the premise of what you've told me alone makes me want to think this could be a good movie. Just to sit down.
I thought you were referring to a Christopher Reeve movie.
No, it's like late 70s, early 80s. You know, H.G. Wells time travels to modern, you know, to 80s era San Francisco to try and catch Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, that sounds dumb enough to watch.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, I think, you know, to me, that just seems to be, to me, it's things that I don't have to think too heavily about or whatever, and just sit back and enjoy them. Do tend to work a bit better on me when it comes to this particular topic.
Yeah,
I think some people just get it because then I know people who are way more probably clued up on the science or whatever than me will be getting to the whole thing of that won't work because of this, you know.
Yeah.
Which would be funny. I could see Jen doing if she was here.
Yeah.
But,
and I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry for the earworm that I implanted into the chat.
Okay, I'm just going to step out for 2 secs, okay?
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, no one really does watch, you know, time travel for the science because, like, for the most part, like, as far as we know, you know, most, like, time travel, at least to the past, is somewhat, it's you know, it may very well be impossible.
Hizzy says that no one watches time travel for the science.
Yeah, that's why I was saying, because, you know, as far as we know, time travel, at least to the past, is impossible.
All time travel is impossible.
Well, I mean, technically, we're time traveling right now.
Technically true, yes.
And actually, technically, with relativity, if you got in a fast enough spaceship, you could technically time travel to the future.
But would you really? I mean, we can look at it in a theoretical Einsteinian time-space.
Yeah. Well, because
and imagine that, but the reality is that if I get in a spaceship and I travel at the speed of light, or greater than the speed of light, some distance, which of course we know is not possible, or from what we know now is not possible.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be anywhere near here. So am I in the future? No, I'm in my present.
No, my point is, so you go, you get in a spaceship, you leave, you go near the speed of light, but not, but not reaching it. And, you come back. Time has moved more slowly for you, and come back to Earth. Time has moved more slowly for you than it has on the Earth. So when you return,
I understand that. But how far do I have to travel? How long do I have to travel to make that difference in time meaningful? If I travel for 2 days at the near speed of light, and then come back for over another 2 days, I've been gone 4 days. How much does my time advance? And is it a meaningful amount to have any purpose?
There's actually an equation for it that I don't remember off the top of my head. I learned it when we were covering relativity in physics.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends on how close to the speed of light you're traveling. It depends on how long you're, and the time traveled. But so. Oh man. See, this is why no one talks about the science of time travel. Because even when you're just talking about relativity, the actually, somewhat possible time travel, it gets into a lot of math and science, and it gets very dry.
Which is what I think solidifies my argument earlier to shut this whole damn discussion down, that the whole time space paradox is the antagonist to any story dealing with time travel. It's the one thing that is problematic. It's the one thing that challenges the protagonist to continue on through the story. It cannot be avoided. It is the master. And
I'd say there's very much a prominent counter example where that's not the case, and it is in fact Connecticut Yankee, because the way the Yankee gets back to King Arthur's court is, he literally just gets knocked on the head and wakes up, and he's in the time of King Arthur,
mm-hmm.
which, as we know, wasn't really technically a thing. King Arthur was one of those semi mythological figures. I think the best theory about him is what our stories about a King Arthur are an amalgamation of 3 different guys that then grew into the legends that we know today.
Sure.
But anyways, he gets knocked back into the time of King Arthur, and for the first few chapters it's just him trying to survive, because he's he kind of looks like a crazy guy.
Mm-hmm.
He gets captured by a knight, and it's a brutal time back then, etc. And then he ends up pulling the old Columbus trick, where he uses where he uses knowledge of an eclipse to make them think that he blocked out the sun.
Well, see, that's one of my problems with it.
Yeah.
Who the hell keeps a reference chart of solar eclipses in the days of King Arthur?
No, it's like the Yankee just knew that it was gonna happen. In like a day or so.
I'm going to make this worse. By which calendar?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, actually, that's kind of the thing is he got it wrong a day off. He got it wrong a day off, but he predicted that it would be later. But so it happens earlier. And he's like, "See what I did."
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm futzing around here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll just have a little look through some of the sort of themes of time travel in fiction, and I mean, some of them I've already looked at, but I mean, this just seems to be sort of list of things like, and it's already been talked. Jenny's already talked about paradox and how that is, the antagonist in a lot of these stories. We talk precognition as well, but I'm just going to have a little look at this one. Time war. You didn't think of any examples of that?
Did you say time warp?
Yeah, time war.
The only one I can think of is the one reference to in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
The big war between the Daleks and the Time Lords.
If you follow it all, the what network is it on? CW network, I think. The DC Legends of Tomorrow, which is supposedly all about the time travel dudes. The whole thing seems to be nothing but one big war of spirits and spirits and whatever from different times.
Well, the first season of Legends is like a really interesting example of that, somewhat, because you've got the protagonists who are jumping around in a time machine, and then you've got the villain for that season, Vandal Savage, who is an immortal.
Yeah. Immortals. Fucking immortals.
I just told you I was looking on Wikipedia. When we were talking precognition, I just remember that film that I was trying to remember, 12 Monkeys.
Yeah.
That's the one. That's
Bruce Willis. Yeah.
That's the one I was trying to remember. I knew it had Bruce Willis in. I did say that, but I was trying to remember the name of it.
Yeah. And actually, I think the Sci-Fi Channel did a TV series based off 12 Monkeys.
It wouldn't surprise me.
I think for my experience, the most mindfuck movie I have ever seen that dealt with time and space would be Slaughterhouse-5. That film just tortured my brain for years until I watched it enough times that I kind of got it, and I still don't think I did.
Yeah, I haven't read Slaughterhouse-5 yet, but I know Kurt Vonnegut can be a bit trippy.
Okay, yeah, a bit trippy. That's a good way to put it.
I mean, I was just thinking because I was just thinking, and again, because funny enough, this kind of just because of something I was reading on the Wikipedia page, reminded me of something we mentioned earlier about how the whole the butterfly effect kind of thing and how that would and because I think this is kind of like something that's come up on like Dave's quiz before or whatever. Like if you could go back in time and like for example, let's say if you could go back in time and kill Hitler, would that be a good thing? And I'd actually make the argue. I don't think that would and I don't honestly think, knowing the history of that period, that would have had much of a difference on how events played out. In my honest opinion,
Really?
So, yeah, there's historical reasons for that because
we probably would.
Probably isn't the stream to really get into this in detail.
Yeah,
but it's perhaps where I sometimes think the whole butterfly effect kind of thing, or in Chaos Theory, of that one single thing that could radically alter everything. I don't think it is that realistic. Even if you could go back in time, I don't know that doing that one sort of thing.
Yeah,
you'd have to invoke change on a massive kind of scale, really.
Yeah, my pet theory in regards to that, and we're talking all hypotheticals because as far as we know, time travel to the past is impossible.
Yeah.
Is if a time traveler were to, go back in time and, like, for instance, kill Hitler or something, their timeline wouldn't change. What would happen is when they returned, they'd actually go to an alternate timeline where their change took place. So it had basically launched the time traveler into an alternate universe.
Yeah, which is
how would they know it's well? Oh no, that's a bad question.
Yeah,
I was going to say
how
would they know it's
from
the
from the position, from the point of view of the time traveler, it would look like they changed the past.
Right.
But for the world, at large, nothing would have actually changed.
I think this is Back to the Future 2. They got very much into this, didn't they?
Yeah.
With the idea of when Biff went back and gave himself that book so he could bet on all the sports results.
And he basically turned into Donald Trump.
Yeah, effectively. Yeah, if not worse, and he'd come back. He's rich, powerful, and had a completely. One thing I think was actually edited out of the film was that when Biff, I think it sort of touched on a bit in the film, but I think in some edits it was cut out that Biff kind of screwed himself because when he went back to 2015, he turned out he'd altered the past that he'd in a way that he'd actually ended up dying in the mid-1990s. So when he went back to 2015, he instantly sort of just collapsed and disappeared.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There's a new thing on TV I have never seen before. It's an exercise machine. It's a pad. It looks like it's maybe this big, by this big, a couple inches high, and it seems to have a pivot in the middle, so that the top surface goes like this.
Yeah.
And you stand on it, except it goes like this very rapidly, and you just stand there and let it shake your ass. And this is going to make you fit. It looks like it could be a lot of fun in bed, maybe, but so they just got all these pictures of everybody's ass shaking.
For an example of time travel, that's a lot smaller stakes. It's a more personal type of story. I'd suggest reading Household Gods by Harry Turtledove and someone else. It was a collaboration. I can't remember the other author. But basically this modern woman, essentially gets Connecticut Yankeed back into the body of one of her, of one of her ancestors in ancient Rome, where she's like an innkeeper, and it's basically about her trying to adjust to living in that time period. Or
I think the whole thing with this concept as a storytelling concept, time travel is very useful for fiction, because there is so much to explore with like the idea of, especially for things like whether it be going back in time or imagining futures or whatever. This is why it is, in a lot of sense, it is a really good thing that can always kind of be gone back to. And I think generally there's doesn't seem to be a lot of possibilities that people haven't explored, but yet I think sometimes they occasionally find one.
Why do you think time travel is such an appealing subject to the masses? Why do people seem drawn to it so much? I mean, I've never heard of a failing film, for example, on about time travel. Using that as a device.
There probably has been some failing, some bad, just some bad, mainly because they were bad stories or whatever. But I think it's appealing on a number of levels. I mean, first of all, if you've got a fascination with something like history, the thought, the idea that you could go like this, a bit later, Hissy and I were doing these Asterix things. We're quite obviously interested in the Roman period. We know Asterix wasn't real or whatever, but someone like us would be like, wouldn't it be interesting to actually go and see firsthand how that society worked? And at the same time, it's always that thing of, I wonder what we'll be doing like 100 years from now, 1,000 years, what the world would be like. So again, that idea is, and I mean, although I think probably now we're at an age where I think people a bit more when we look at futures. I mean, at one time it used to be all like this. A lot of even science fiction just painted this real kind of glitzy, brilliant kind of future, almost utopian kind of futures. I think now we're seeing far more dystopian ideas, which I think probably reflects what's more likely to. In reality, what happened.
Well, that's the kind of thing, is images of the future tend to cycle around. Is like, we'll have a really good bright vision of the future, and then next decade or so we'll have a terrible one. Like, for instance, in the early 60s, or in the late 60s, early 70s, we had the Star Trek vision of future.
Yeah.
And then in the late 70s, early 80s, everything was all cyberpunk and Blade Runner.
Yeah. Or Mad Max or something like that.
Yeah.
Like post-apocalyptic kind of things.
Yeah. But in regards to the whole idea that you can't really change things, there's a good once again, Harry Turtledove. Not a lot of this stuff are actually time travel. It's mostly alternate history. But he wrote this novel called Guns of the South, where it turns out that South Africans who didn't like the fact that what's the word? Apartheid ended.
Yeah.
Time travel back to the Civil War. Because they figure if there was another, slave power at the time, then the pressure to end apartheid wouldn't have been as great. So they basically time travel back to the Civil War and start supplying the Confederate Army with AK-47s.
Mm.
But the thing is, even after the South wins, Robert E. Lee gets elected, and he still decides to phase out slavery.
Yeah.
So it's like you did try, you did change something, but you didn't achieve, you didn't make a big enough change to achieve your goal.
No, and I think sometimes, because when we look at like history or whatever, we can get very fixated on one thing or whatever, and not see the broader scope of what was happening in the world at the time, which is again why I think that, say, in 1920, someone shooting Hitler, I don't think would have made much of a difference to the fact that some far right fascist party was going to come to power in Germany, and a lot of because he wasn't something that existed in a bubble. And
even if you nipped fascism in the bud in Germany, Mussolini was still, kicking around in Italy. Yeah. Basically, all nipping the Nazis in the bud would have done was changed who the bad guy was in World War II.
Yeah.
But the Italian people were beginning to reject Mussolini. That was much of what his whole downfall was the dissatisfaction of his leadership by the people.
I'd say getting them involved in World War II was probably his big mistake, really. Mm-hmm. But this could be a whole different subject for another debate. But that's just an opinion I have on it. That to sort of just removing that one person or whatever, may not have had a massive change on the fact that, because you're talking about one person, but those ideas exist. Those ideas already existed, and I think people can get fixated on it was this one guy who had these ideas that somehow bewitched an entire nation into this path of insanity.
Well, I would like to rebut that, if I may.
Okay, sure.
I think there's certainly a lot of validity in what you're saying, but for a leader to take the kind of control that Hitler had over Germany at the time, the amount of charisma necessary for that, and he was known for having that charisma, for being able to take individuals and have a room full of people adore him, for as horrible as he was. I think all the elements of the cultural changes and the hatred that had developed, towards Jews and other people, a lot of that came out of his charisma and his drive and his desire to have things a certain way. So I think there may have been a very dark period in Germany's history with a lot of fascism going on, but I don't know that it would have become the goal of world domination the way it did. I think that was what he created.
My pushback on that would be that he was not the only charismatic speaker in that party. Someone else would have taken that role. My hunch would have been Goebbels, who was also a very, very charismatic speaker. And I mean, but it's fascinating. I mean, it's a fascinating. I mean, ultimately, it's a fascinating discussion. But ultimately, we're never going to know, because, as we know, this is all a hypothetical. But it's good to see that, in a way, that these works of fiction explore those kind of ideas. In a way, are what if there was an alternate future?
Or I'd like to make a counterpoint to kind of.
Yeah.
Well, another example of why I think Scummer is more on the correct idea. So, everyone knows that the event that sparked World War I was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Generally.
Yeah, generally. Okay, that's an accepted one, but again, that could be a whole that could be a whole other topic in itself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
it was
my
a building
point
powder keg
is,
that got triggered.
yeah, but my point is, well, at the time, World War One was a powder keg, or I mean, not World War One. Europe was a powder keg.
Powder keg, yeah.
And even like decades before, or a couple decades before the Archduke was assassinated, Otto von Bismarck's like, a great war, another great European war is coming, and it'll probably be sparked off by some damn thing in the Balkans. So, World War One was essentially inevitable just based off the political climate of the area at the time.
Mm.
So you could save, you could save the Archduke, and sure, that would change that would change things for the Archduke and his family, but something else would have set off World War One.
I guess I sort of agree with that. Yeah, things were bad. Things were getting worse, and that was the trigger. But
and I guess that's part of the reason why time travel to the past is in particular is so popular, because it plays with the idea of cause and effect, which is essentially what the building block of literature and other media associated with the very building block of storytelling is the idea of cause and effect.
I mean, yeah, I'll say one of my like I said, one of my favorite little examples of like a cause and effect thing, which and I know this is a good one to mention, because this is definitely another trope that's been brought up a number of times by people, but this one came from Red Dwarf when they were messing around with this time displacement thing that they had or whatever, and they accidentally teleported themselves into the 6th floor of the school book depository in 1963, right as Oswald, and without even realizing, they accidentally knock Oswald out of the window and save Kennedy's life. And of course they have to sort of jump to this future or whatever, and they find out that obviously that one action has led to a whole dystopian kind of future or whatever, and Kennedy ended up getting impeached or something, and somehow or a way or another that Hoover ended up as president or something, and it ended up this whole dystopian thing. So the thing they realized they had to do to remedy this was make sure that the Kennedy assassination still took place. And they went to Kennedy, who was being locked up at the time, and kind of talked him into what needed to be done. And he came back and was the second gunman on the grassy knoll. I thought it was fantastic. I thought that was so brilliantly, and the fact that Lister was sort of saying, "Well, it drives the conspiracy theorists mad," but
Well, time travel, I think, is like one of the most flexible vehicles that you can use in filmmaking or writing to create whatever you want down the road. I think that's part of why people like it, because they know inside that when they go see a time travel movie, you never know what's going to fucking happen.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think people also get this little sensation of my culture's better than yours, and I can show you prove that through time travel, and I'm superior to you. So if I go back in the past, I can be better than all those people back there because I know all this shit.
Yeah. So one last question. Oh, sorry.
No, you can ask your question, because I've got a good question to ask if it's not what you're going to ask. So.
Well, mine is going to be kind of the closing sort of thing.
Okay.
you can go first.
Well, I didn't want to steal your thunder in case we found on the same idea at the same time here, but I guess a fascinating thing is just to say to us here now, if time travel was a thing, and we could do it, where would we travel to? Would it be past, future, or would we observe or want to change anything? I think that'd be a good little thing. I think to have a quick conversation on.
Okay. So we're assuming time travel is two-way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I know exactly what I'd do. I'd go to the grocery store, get a bunch of spices. Like go to Costco, get some spices in bulk, repackage them, and then go back to, late Middle Ages, Renaissance era, be a spice merchant, and just make a ton of money that way. And then, sell, and then, store the coins and jewels and whatever that I get for payment in a vault somewhere. Check in on it every so often, make sure it's, doesn't get destroyed in a war or stolen or something. And then and then sell them to become filthy rich. And,
Cardamom is life.
Aside from that, like the one other thing on my time travel bucket list, so to speak, is eat a dodo. Because apparently they were so freaking delicious that we hunted them to extinction.
Why don't you like take a few dodos or whatever so you can breed them and maybe not let them go extinct?
If we had those kind of powers going back in the past, I would do my damnedest to prevent the annihilation of the passenger pigeon.
Yeah, I mean, I think possibly, as curious as I am about what the future might bring, I think my fascination with parts of the past and ancient civilizations would make me want to see them in their full glory. I understand with one or two of them that could be a little bit of a problem because I could end up being a sacrifice or something if I go and see Tenochtitlan or something like the Aztec capital. It could be a possibility. I was lucky enough a couple of years to go to see Machu Picchu in Peru, but how fascinating would that be to see it in its heyday in full glory?
Oh yeah.
Was the ruins spectacular enough, but it'd be amazing to see it in its whole glory. I think that would be the thing. I would probably be looking at ancient civilizations or whatever. Would fascinate me. I probably don't know how much I'd want to mess with anything.
Yeah.
I like that idea. I would like to see why did they go away? Why did they collapse?
Yeah. Well, and that's why I wouldn't try to save the dodos from extinction, because you don't know what I'd basically after I make my money and I'm sure that I can support myself fairly well, I'd be essentially a time tourist.
Yeah, I think that's probably where I'd end up going, is time tourism.
It would be cool. I would really like to know what happened to the Mayans. Why did they really disappear? Why did the Anasazi disappear? What was their environment like then that they could survive where they did?
But before we wrap this up, one final question. In your opinion, is cryogenic suspension time travel or not?
I suppose it could be thought of in that respect, but I don't know where I fall on the question. Honestly, I think it could be. It is a case that it could be argued that it's a form of time travel or whatever. Where, you spend someone and they wake up in a totally different period of time.
Yeah.
With no clue where they are, what anything. I mean, okay, great. It makes good makes good plot devices for films, books, television.
Yeah.
If we have to define time travel, if we define time travel as the manipulation of the space-time continuum through the study of science and physics, absolutely not. Cryogenics is nothing like time travel. Absolutely nothing. However, if we define it as the ability to exist in one time period and the next awareness being a different time period, then yes, I guess it could be, but
and Hissy points
it's not going to work either.
Hissy puts it, cryogenic suspension is just a cool coma. If coma patients haven't time traveled, then cryogenic suspension isn't time travel.
Yeah.
Well, I think the argument could be made that coma victims have time travel if we're going to allow cryogenics to be defined that way.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and go around with the shilling. Jenny?
I got nothing.
Okay.
No, Jen and I are talking about doing some things together, this being Pride Month and all, but we have no definitive plans, but cooking up some ideas.
Scummer? I mean...
as little over an hour, we'll be on Hissy's channel where we're continuing through our through the Asterix books. Now, yes, we are doing it a little later than normal this week because normally we're on before you. We're going after it. We've got this scheduled for a little over an hour or so. So other than that, I should be having a Christian friend of mine come onto my channel for just a discussion. It's not going to be like a heavy debate on. It'll be about 12:30 UK time on Tuesday, and I think Chris, Atheist Pastor, should be joining us for that. So make sure to keep it civil. So that's kind of what I've got coming up in the next few days on the old YouTube thing. But remember, the Asterix stream is on Hissy's channel today. So just for the record. So
And as for me, I've got the on Saturdays I've got the Atheist D&D that I run on same ring time, same ring channel, and then on Sundays we have Medium Musings. Next week we're probably talking about Philip K. Dick, or we might be doing the Star Wars game if Jen's feeling up to it. And keep an eye on this channel because I will be releasing my Ken Ham roasting video sometime in the next couple days. And remember, indoctrination is a hell of a selfie stick.